What's up guys, it's Paraly5er here, and today we're going to be ranking the utility items in Grounded 1.2.4. This is the list of items that I'm going to be ranking today. There's a bunch of different items from boss summons to other useful items like meals and, all of this cool little stuff in here. So, let's get straight into it. I'm going to be ranking them based off basically how useful I think they are, maybe how easy they are to get, those kind of things. And yeah, as always, it's my opinion. Don't be too offended, please. It's just a bit of fun, okay? First, we have the BBQ medley. Now, actually getting the recipe for this is very easy. You just go into the composter, you find the skeleton, you loot it, you have the recipe. Crafting the recipe requires a bee stinger, 3 mosquito blood sacs, 1 tiger mosquito beak, and 3 sour lumps, which I'd say is relatively cheap. I'd say this is S tier, like, it's got a cheap recipe, which I don't mind. It's easy to get the recipe. Once you've made it, it's like only 1,000 raw science to dupe, so even if you don't have much of the stuff you need to make it, you can just dupe it anyway. I actually really like this recipe. I really rate this recipe for how cheap it is. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in an S tier. It's an easy to craft recipe. That's basically the one thing I can judge it on, is how easy it is to make, right? We might as well do all the boss items at once. So next, let's do the Broodmother BLT. This costs 2 Bombardier parts, 2 Ladybug parts, and a Thistle Needle. Again, the recipe is easy to find. It's very cheap to craft. S tier recipe. Very, very easy to get. Next, we have the Moldy Hoagie. It's another boss summoning item, of course. 3 toenails, a mantis head, a wasp queen head, and 2 Broodmother fangs. C tier. This recipe is extremely expensive. The only upside is that you can actually duplicate it for 1,000 raw science, but it costs 3 toenails, which take like 7 in-game days to respawn and are very, very annoying to collect. It costs a mantis head, which means you have to kill the mantis to make it, which is like, okay, I understand. You have to beat the mantis in order to fight this thing, right? It's the hardest boss in the game. But requiring a mantis head every time is crazy. Same with the wasp queen head and the Broodmother fangs. Like, you have to basically, if you want to fight this guy, you have to first go and fight a mantis, a wasp queen, and a Broodmother every time you want to fight this, unless you use the super duper. The final boss summoning item is the Orchid Mantis Kebab. This costs 5 Broodmother chunks, 2 fire ant heads, and 1 wooden splinter. I'm going to put this in B tier. Fire ant heads, for some reason, I really struggle to get. They drop really, really rarely from fire ants. Like, maybe a 5% chance. I've been really unlucky with them, or just they're really annoying to get, I guess. And Broodmother chunks can be a bit of a pain to harvest as well. You can just, again, dupe this for 1k raw science, I'm pretty sure. But 5 Broodmother chunks is a pain to harvest. It's not fun to harvest. 5 Broodmother chunks every time. You have to go and kill a Broodmother every time. Maybe even more than 1. Depends how lucky you get on the drops now, I think. So for me, it's a B tier. It's a bit of an annoying recipe as well. Right, let's go with the shields next. Weevil Shield. B tier, I guess. Easy to craft. Doesn't really cause too much of a problem. Does the job pretty well. Same with the Black Ant Shield. I give it a solid B tier. Ladybug Shield, I'm going to put in B tier, and then I'm going to put the Fire Ant Shield in A tier. Actually, no, I'll put the Fire Ant in S and the Ladybird Shield in A. The reason the Fire Ant's the best for me is its effect is just way better than the Ladybird. The Ladybird makes when you perfect block, you can do stamina-free attacks for a temporary amount of time. But the Fire Ant Shield makes it so that blocking has a 20% chance to increase damage taken by enemies, or reduce enemy defense, by 15%, which is just really, really good. So for me, that's the S tier shield. It's by far the best shield in the game. Next, we have the canteens. I don't know why I don't have a regular canteen here. I thought I included it, but I don't see it, so. Charcoal canteen, D tier. Now, some of you are going to hate me for this. You're thinking, it holds 6 drops, it cleans water. Okay, yeah, fair enough. B tier then, B tier. It holds 6 drops, and it cleans so you can drink from any water source in the game. But the regular canteen's better. The Canteen Plus. Now this Canteen Plus only holds 4 drops. Why is it better? Well, it doesn't have durability. The worst part about the charcoal canteen is you have to repair it after like maybe 10 to 15 uses. It has barely any durability. Okay, we'll just collect a lot of charcoal. Well, I'm not carrying charcoal around with me everywhere. I'd rather use the Canteen Plus that I don't have to repair. Well, how are you going to get water then? Well, every single lab has an infinite water source in the water cooler. You can just go in and refill it every time you go in there. And if that's not an option, then you just grab some water off some grass. It's really not that difficult. I much prefer the Canteen Plus over a charcoal canteen. I don't think the charcoal canteen's very good. I think they should triple the durability of it, and then maybe I'd use it. It's just too weak for me. Repair tool. Now this is controversial. I don't think the repair tool's good. I'm gonna put it in C. Now hear me out here. The repair tool itself is a good idea. But if you're playing a custom game with the Handy Nat enabled, which I know a lot of people like using the Handy Nat, the Handy Nat has its own repair tool equipped. You don't need to craft a repair tool to repair anything. You just open up the Handy Nat and the Handy Nat will repair it for you. It is free, just like it is with the repair tool, except you don't have to craft it. So you never, ever, ever need to carry a repair tool ever again. You go and do the final mixer and you activate it and it says, oh, you need to repair all of the mixer modules. Okay, I'll just pull out my Handy Nat and it'll repair them for me. I don't need to bring a repair tool with me anymore. So the repair tool is useless now. The only time the repair tool can be useful is A, if you're not playing a custom game, or B, during the mixers, because I'm pretty sure you can't pull out the Handy Nat during mixers or defense events, which would mean you have to use the repair tool to repair stuff in those situations. But to be honest, if a wall's on really low health, I'm going to give you a cool tip. Don't use the repair tool to repair it. Just recycle the wall and rebuild it, because when you recycle it, you get all the resources back, and you can rebuild it with all the resources back to full health instantly. It's quicker than the repair tool. Do I need to speak about these two items? The flare and the decoy bait, seriously. If you even think about using these items, go see a doctor. Flares, useless. They provide light, but you might as well just use a torch. Someone's going to say, oh, but I really like flares because it means I can throw them on the ground and I can see while I'm using my two-handed weapon. Oh, I really like them. Shush, man. If you're in an ant nest, you can see the ants by their red eyes. You don't need light to see. And decoy bait, do I need to talk about decoy bait as well? Like, really? Like, what is this item? I don't even know what you use the item for, I'll be honest. It's supposed to attract large creatures like spiders and stuff. Pointless. Pointless item. Fiber bandages. S tier. I'll be honest. I always carry a stack of fiber bandages with me. They give you passive regen. There's no passive regen by default in Grounded. So if you're looking for some sort of regen to passively heal you up, then go with bandages. They're a very, very good choice. And they only cost 1 sap and 1 plant fiber if you have fiber bandage efficiency. Do we really have to talk about the next item? The Shinobi Sneeze. It reduces your attack damage by 80% for 5 seconds. It deals 20 damage to the player, and it makes you temporarily invisible for 5 seconds. The worst item in Grounded. One of the worst items in Grounded. It's down there, for sure. It is god-awful. Never ever use this item. Please, for the sake of your sanity, just don't use it. Heal Bassers. A tier. Now, these are really good if you're playing multiplayer. But if you're playing solo, you might as well just use Beefy Smoothies because they heal the exact same amount. They're not too expensive to craft. The Silk Rope's a bit of a pain to wait on the spinning wheels because they take forever. But I give it a solid A just because in multiplayer you can heal all 4 players at once with 1 throw of a heal basser. Now, we have all of these torches. I don't have the regular torch for some reason, but I have the Slime Lantern and Slime Lantern Plus. Slime Lantern's like a C, Slime Lantern Plus is like a B. Torch Plus is like a B. Charcoal Torch is like an S. And Slime Mold Torch is like a C. Slime Mold Torch is good because it works on land and underwater, but it has very low durability. The Slime Lantern has higher durability, but it's more expensive to craft. It's a bit of a pain to craft. This Slime Mold Torch is very, very easy to craft. Torch Plus is easy to craft, but doesn't work underwater. Slime Lantern Plus, bit of a pain to craft. It's the same recipe as the Slime Lantern, but it works on land and underwater and lasts a bit longer. Charcoal Torch is the best. It works underwater, on land. You craft it and then you can repair it, which is very nice, and it lasts a long, long time, unlike the Charcoal Canteen, which needs repaired. So yeah, you repair it, it lasts a long time. The best torch out of them all by far. Now next we come on to the meals in the game. How are we going to rank these? Right, for those who don't know, tier 1 meals give you 1 effect from the meal. They give you 12 minutes of that effect, and it gives you passive regen of regular passive regen. Tier 2 gives you 16 minutes of the duration with a buff, and it times that regen by 1.5. Tier 3 gives you 20 minutes. It gives you 2 buffs, not just 1, 2 buffs. And it doubles the regen from Tier 1. So let's start with the Black Ox Burger. This increases your damage resistance by 2%. It increases your max health. And it is a Tier 3 meal. C tier. Increasing max health, pretty pointless. Damage resistance of 2% is very, very little. Although when you have all of the other damage resistance stuff in the game, that 2% is a bit higher as a... It's not really, like, it's still 2%, but it's higher as a proportion of your damage being taken. It increases to, like, maybe 5%, but it's still a C tier meal. It's overrated. It's not that good. We have Boatman Fin Soup, and I'm going to include Spaghetti here, and I'm also going to include the Tadpoloka Pudding. Now, Boatman Fin Soup increases your swim speed. Spaghetti increases your airtime, and Tadpoloka Pudding does airtime and swim speed, and it's tier 3. These two are only tier 1 each. So I'm going to say that these two are C, and Tadpoloka Pudding is probably an A tier meal. Tier 3 meal, very, very good underwater if you're just trying to stay underwater for a long time. So, yeah, solid meal. I don't really use it much, but if you like going underwater a lot, then you probably want it for, I don't know, farming gold cards, for example, of the different underwater enemies. We have the Empanadas next, which costs Dust Mite Fuzz, Termite Parts, and a Spicy Shard, and it gives you Dust Guard and Hyper Stamina. Now, Dust Guard I don't really rate in this game. It doesn't really actually work that well. I'm going to put this in a D. The reason I'm going to put this in a D is the recipe is not very fun to craft. It is tier 3, but Dust Guard just isn't fun, man. Dust Guard does not work. I'm sorry, it just doesn't. If you put Dust Guard on, you still take damage from the dust. You still get some of the debuffs. For example, if you're fighting the Moth and you have Dust Guard, you still get the bleed effect from the dust. It's silly. There's no point of having Dust Guard. It's a D tier. Next, we have Might Loaf and Fungus Pacho, which both increase your attack stamina. I'll put Might Loaf in C and Fungus Pacho in B. I don't really think attack stamina is a great effect, but obviously Fungus Pacho has to go higher because it's a tier 2 meal, so it gives you better regen from the meal and it lasts longer. Might Loaf, yeah, C and B I think is fair. Next we have Nachos and Mac and Bees. These increase your fall defense. I'm just going to put them both in D. You don't need to increase your fall damage defense. It's a pointless effect. Just use a glider or use Daredevil. Don't bother with these two, man. They're pointless. There's no point. Next, we have Lavanya and Spider Slider, which increase your critical hit chance. I'm going to put these in B and A tier. Actually, no. I'm going to put these in A and S tier. Because I love using critical hit chance during boss fights. I think this is one of the best meals you can use in most of the boss fights in the game to increase your crit chance. There's not many others that give you very good effects like these. So for that reason, S and A tier meals. The Omelant gives you a Thorns effect, which reflects damage back at your enemies. Now this is, you know I don't like Thorns effects. They reflect damage back at enemies. You have to get hit for them to work. I'm going to say this is like a C tier. It's just not really that good, to be honest. I don't really like it, so C tier. Quesadilla Antlion is very similar, except it's a tier 3 meal, and it also gives you sizzle protection, so I'm going to put that in A tier. Very, very good if you're in the sandbox, or if you're trying to do the charcoal defense for the Kultana. Yeah, I really, really rate it, or if you're trying to collect charcoal as well. I really like the sizzle protection provided by this meal, so I think it's a very good meal to use. The Termite Delight. This one increases your rock and grass harvest speed. I've never actually used this meal for its intended purpose, but I can imagine if you are trying to harvest resources, it will allow you to probably one-tap grass with an axe. So I'm going to put it in B tier. It's probably pretty useful for those of you who are harvesting rocks and grass all the time for your amazing builds. Finally, we have the Wasp Roll, another tier 3 meal, which gives you poison resistance and makes you recover from exhaustion quicker. I'll say this is an A tier, because it's really good if you're fighting wasps, or if you're fighting the Wasp Queen, or if you're fighting anything poisonous like spiders. So I'd highly recommend this meal. I think it's a very good meal. It's just a bit expensive. It costs 3 wasp shells and 3 wasp paper, which isn't very cheap. Now, to finish off, we have the smoothies in the game. Now, I made a very important note here to try and include every type of smoothie. Sticky as well as a beefy slop. Now, a beefy slop is basically your typical healing smoothie. It's going to heal you for 40 HP by default, unless you've increased like your healing using molars and stuff. This is like an S tier. How can you say no? It doesn't matter what smoothie you're using to heal, it's the best smoothie. Like, you need smoothies to heal in the game. You need to carry some sort of healing item, whether it's granola bars, smoothies, or heal basses. If you're playing solo, healing with smoothies is the best way to go. Pretty cheap to make if you're using slop. You can use any 3 items, and you just need muscle sprouts, which you can now farm, which is very nice. Then we have sticky slop. You're wondering, how is this different? Sticky slop actually gives you a passive regen effect. That's the special effect of sticky slop, if you didn't know. It's kind of similar to a bandage, except it does cost gum nuggets. So I'm going to put it in A just because it costs a gum nugget, which makes it a bit more expensive. The next one we have here is boost juice, which increases your maximum stamina. I'm going to put this in B tier along with Fuzz on the Rocks. The idea of increasing the maximums to me isn't really that interesting. And so for that reason, I'm going to say it's like a B tier. I wouldn't really use them that much. They're not like an essential to me in a boss fight. I'll use them if I'm really desperate, but I don't really need them. This next smoothie, it has me really torn. Boss sauce. Wasp Queen Head, Broodmother Fang, and Mantis Head to craft. Very, very expensive. Also a gum nugget, of course. To dupe it, I think it costs 2k raw science, but it increases your crit hit chance by 10%. 10 percentage points. In terms of the effect it gives, it's an S tier. In terms of the cost of the smoothie, it's a D tier. I'm going to put it in A tier. It's an amazing effect. It just is. 2,000 raw science to dupe it is, I would say, worth it if you're fighting something like the infected broodmother. But otherwise, it's a bit too expensive. It's A tier. It's a very, very good if you're running a crit build, like a dagger crit build, high speed, bleed, poison damage build. It's very, very good. Next is fluid flippers. I might as well group this with liquid gills. I'll be honest, I'm going to put these in C tier. If you're going to increase your breathing time and speed underwater, you're better off just using the Tadpoloka pudding instead. It's just a meal. It's going to last much longer. You won't have to eat for a while either. It's just a better effect overall. These two are nowhere near as good, and they're on the same level as a Boatman Fin Soup and a Spaghetti Flea, although they don't last anywhere near as long, so they should actually be in D tier instead, because these two give you similar effects, except they last for like 10 minutes, and this only lasts for like a couple minutes. Next, we have Human Food, S tier, one of the best smoothies in the game. Costs a fresh chunk of apple bits, cookie bits, and Billy Hog Bites, but it's easily one of the best smoothies in the game. By far, one of the best smoothies. Increases your damage resistance by 10 percentage points, which it's undisputed how good this smoothie is. Next, we have Green Machine. A lot of people like this smoothie. Very, very easy to craft. It gives you increased hyper stamina, which means you recover your stamina faster. I'm going to put this in A tier. It's not a perfect smoothie, but it is a very, very good smoothie. So for that reason, it's an A tier. Next, we have Hedgelord, D tier. It makes you fuller and moist, which means you have to eat and drink less often. If you're eating meals, you never have to eat anyway because of the effect. And drinking less often isn't really that important once you've used all your molars up, to be honest. If you want to drink less often, use the Juicy mutation, okay? This is where I realised that what I ranked before was Gastro Goo, so just pretend that I magically switched these over. Gastro Goo is C tier, I guess. You can use it as it basically gets rid of stinky damage. You can use it instead of a gas mask, which is pretty useful, but I don't really use it very often. If you're trying to just avoid gas masks in general, then yeah, use it. C tier. Liquid Rage, S tier. Increases your damage by like 10%, I think, maybe more. Very cheap to craft. One of the best smoothies in the game, by far. Definitely one that you want if you're going into a boss fight. Waspidotes. Now, this one will cure poison instantly and give you a bit of poison resistance. I highly, highly rate this smoothie, particularly for the Wasp Queen fight. It's an A tier. The biggest problem with this smoothie is it costs wasp shells and wasp paper, which is pretty expensive. But it is very, 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 very useful for curing poison in that fight, particularly if you get hit with some of those bombs. They can be very dangerous. Finally, Workers' Comp, which gives you hauling strength. Now, if I want hauling strength, Hauling Hero is a much better choice rather than crafting this smoothie. Although it is very cheap, I'll put it in B tier. It's a very cheap smoothie. And yeah, increases your hauling strength by a couple of points, so it's useful. That's my utility tier list. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Hopefully I didn't butcher it too badly, I'd always love to hear your opinions. I'm sure there'll be some strongly worded ones as always. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, leave a like on it, and I'll see you in the next Grounded video. Have a great rest of your day.